My family loves to joke about my pain. They think they know exactly who I am. The failure, the homeless girl. Tonight, they are all laughing. What they do not know is that in about 30 minutes, their entire world is going to collapse, and I am the one holding the detonator. This Christmas party is about to become a financial crime scene. My name is Miranda Crawford, and tonight, I am walking into my own execution. Or at least, that is what my family has planned. I push open the heavy, oak and glass doors of the Briarwood Ridge Country Club. The air that hits me is a physical thing, a 20-degree drop from the December chill outside. It smells of money, fresh-cut Fraser fir, and a faint, cloying hint of mulled wine. Every surface gleams. Thousands of tiny white lights are strung from the rafters, reflecting in the polished marble floor and the endless rows of crystal glasses. A string quartet in the corner is playing a muted, elegant version of "O Come All Ye Faithful." It is perfect, a perfect, sterile, beautiful lie. I am wearing a black, custom-tailored suit. The wool is fine, the cut sharp enough to draw blood. I feel the weight of it on my shoulders, not as clothing, but as armor. My hair is pulled back tight, and I'm wearing no jewelry, save for a simple watch. I am not here to blend in. I am here to stand out. I am also here to be humiliated. I spot him immediately. Of course, he is the center of gravity in any room, or so he demands. My brother, Landon Mercer. He is standing near the towering, 20-foot Christmas tree, which is decorated in a tasteful, suffocating theme of silver and gold. He has a microphone in one hand and a champagne flute in the other. He flashes a smile at the crowd, a brilliant, empty, practiced smile that has gotten him everything he ever wanted. He is the MC tonight, the star, and I am the entertainment. I stay near the back, by the doorway. A few heads turn, whispers start, like dry leaves skittering across pavement. That's her. That's Miranda. 6 years. 6 years since I last saw any of them. And this is the welcome I get. Landon taps the microphone. The string quartet fades. Friends! Family! His voice booms, artificially warm, laced with the self-satisfaction of a man who has never failed, because he has never truly tried. Thank you all for coming to our little Christmas celebration. It means so much to have you here, especially to honor our grandfather, Walter. He gestures vaguely toward Walter, who is in a wheelchair by the fireplace, but his eyes do not linger. His eyes are scanning the crowd, hunting. And then they find me. A slow, predatory smile spreads across his face. This is it. The show is starting. And look, he shouts, pointing directly at me with the microphone. A Christmas miracle. My big sister, Miranda, has graced us with her presence. Everyone, let's give her a hand, shall we? A spattering of applause. It is thin, confused. Most of these people are his business partners, his investors, his sycophants. They do not know me. They only know the story he has fed them. We were so worried, Miranda, he continues, his tone dripping with mock concern. I mean, when you do not have a permanent address, it is hard to know where to send the invitation. We almost checked the local shelters. A ripple of laughter. This time, it is not thin. It is sharp and cruel. I do not move. I do not blink. I keep my hands loosely at my sides. I feel the burn of every eye in the room, 100 tiny spotlights meant to peel me apart. But seriously, Landon says, taking a step closer to the tree, we are so glad you are here, because family is about, well, it is about truth, and we have all been hearing these stories. He lowers his voice, as if sharing a juicy secret with a room of 200 people. Stories about my sister, that she is some kind of, what is it, Mary? A CEO? That is what you have been telling people? He scoffs, a sharp, ugly sound. A CEO of what, exactly? A company that runs on hopes and dreams? A company you run from a Starbucks Wi-Fi connection? He pauses for the laughter. It comes right on cue. I mean, let's be honest, he says, leaning in. It is okay to fail, It really is. Some people just are not cut out for the real world, and we, as a family, are here to support you, even if you are practically homeless. Homeless. The word hangs in the air. Thick and toxic, it is the kill shot. The one word he knows will cut the deepest. The one fear my mother used to wield like a scalpel. I look past him, to my parents, Richard and Elaine Mercer. They are seated at the head table, beaming, not with pride, with vindication. My father, Richard, raises his glass in a silent toast to his son. My mother, Elaine, smooths a non-existent wrinkle in the linen tablecloth, her smile tight and satisfied. This is their doing. This is the narrative they have authored. Landon is the golden boy, the financial wizard with his new fund. Summit Crest Ventures. I am the wayward daughter, the cautionary tale, the ungrateful child who flew too close to the sun and melted. Their relief is palpable. The black sheep has finally been proven to be just that. The family order is restored. My gaze drifts. I see my cousin, Harper Quinn. She is standing at the far end of the cocktail bar, wearing a dark green velvet dress. She is a reporter, a real one, an investigative journalist who has broken stories I cannot even comprehend. She is also the only person in this family who has not actively tried to destroy me. Her phone is in her hand, resting on the bar. But it is not idle. I see the small red light. She is recording, not out of malice, but out of habit. She documents. It is what she does. Our eyes meet for a fraction of a second. She gives me nothing, but she does not have to. Landon is on a roll now. He is feeding off the energy, the laughter, the sheer, delicious cruelty of it all. But you know me, he says, putting a hand on his chest. I am a numbers guy. I like facts. I do not like fiction, and I have heard so many fictional stories about my sister's success that I decided to do a little verification, for the family's sake, you understand. My stomach does not drop. My heart does not race. I feel a sudden, strange, icy calm. It is here. I hired a professional intelligence firm, Landon announces, his voice swelling with importance. A top-tier firm from New York, Granite Point Intelligence. Maybe you have heard of them? They do not come cheap, let me tell you. He gestures to the waitstaff, who are standing by with stacks of thick, manila-colored folders, embossed with the Granite Point logo. I had them run a full check on everything, the company, the contracts, the penthouse in Denver. He spits out the word penthouse like it is poison. And in just a few minutes, after my toast, we are all going to get a copy of that report, every single one of you, so we can all see the truth together as a family. He raises his glass. To transparency. The room cheers. To transparency. And I'm standing by the door, watching the man who is about to publicly execute me, and I'm counting down the seconds. You see, this is where the movie freezes. This is the part where the narrator, me, leans in and tells you what is really happening. This night is not an accident. It is a collision. It is 6 years of my life. 6 years of being told I was nothing. 6 years of silence and pain. Finally colliding with the present I built with my own hands, with blood and code and zero sleep. Landon thinks he is exposing a failure. He thinks those folders are full of eviction notices and maxed out credit cards. He thinks he is about to unmask a fraud. What he does not know, what none of them know, is that I knew he hired Granite Point Intelligence 3 weeks ago. I have been waiting for this. I have been preparing. In the next hour, you are going to hear the story of how I went from sleeping on the stained sofa of a 24-hour co-working space to building an 8-figure civic tech empire. You are going to hear how I created Aurora Meridian Civic Wear, a company that actually helps people, a company that is currently in final negotiations for contracts that would make Landon's entire venture fund look like a child's lemonade stand. And you are going to watch as those folders are handed out. I know exactly what is in them. I know because the man Landon hired, Elias Ward, is a man who hates fraud more than he loves a paycheck. Landon's report on me is 5 pages of verified, audited, undeniable success. But the rest of the report, the other 20 pages, that is the interesting part. That is the part Elias found when he started digging into the person who paid him. That part is all about Summit Crest Ventures. It is about shell companies. It is about offshore accounts. It is about investor fraud on a scale that will send my brother to prison for a very, very long time. Landon thought I walked in here with nothing. He didn't know I brought the one thing he couldn't fabricate. Proof. 6 years ago. It was Christmas Eve, and I was 27 years old. The Mercer house near Cleveland was suffocating in the smell of roasting turkey, simmering cranberries, and a damp wool scent from the blizzard outside. I had just burned through the last of my meager savings to finish a low-paying coding boot camp, a desperate pivot from a string of dead-end jobs. I was clinging to the fragile hope of 3, maybe 4, phone interviews I had lined up in Denver for the new year. I was trying to be invisible, to just survive the dinner. My father, Richard, stood at the head of the dining table, meticulously sharpening a long carving knife. He loved the performance of it. My mother, Elaine, was not sitting. She was orbiting the table, adjusting silverware, tweaking the already perfect Christmas centerpiece, and my brother, Landon, 23 years old, and already crowned the family's messiah, was holding court. He was boasting about the seed money he had just secured for his investment fund, Summit Crest Ventures. It is not just about returns, he was saying, his voice smooth and practiced. It is about legacy. I was nursing a glass of water, trying to calculate if I had enough gas money to get back to my tiny apartment. My father paused his knife sharpening. The rhythmic shing 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 stopped, leaving a sudden, heavy silence. "Miranda," he said, his voice a proclamation, not an inquiry. He did not look at me. He was addressing the turkey. "We have decided, starting Monday, you will be working for your brother." I froze, my glass halfway to my lips. "What?" "As his executive assistant," Richard continued, testing the blade against his thumb. "He needs someone organized. We are giving you this chance." My mother stopped her orbiting, beaming at Landon, then at my father. "It is a wonderful opportunity, dear," she said to the air, somewhere to my left. "A real, stable job. You will be helping your brother build something important. It is a family favor." A cold pit opened in my stomach. A favor, not a job, an obligation. I cannot," I stammered. "I mean, thank you, but I cannot." Richard's head snapped up. His eyes were cold. "You cannot?" "I have interviews," I tried to explain, my voice sounding weak even to my own ears. "After the first of the year, in Denver, for junior developer positions. I want to build a career, a real one." Landon let out a short, sharp laugh. It was a sound of pure dismissal. He put down his wineglass and turned to me, his face a mask of pitying amusement. "Interviews? Miri, be realistic. You are not a developer. You are imagining you are a coder." He gestured at me, as if presenting evidence to a jury. "You went to community college. You just finished some cheap, 6-week online boot camp. Your experience is fixing a dentist's website for $50. My fund is going to manage $50 million by next year. I need a professional, but Dad insisted we help you." The room was shrinking. I could feel the heat rising in my face. "I am not asking for help," I said. "I am asking for you to respect my decision." "Oh, your decision." My mother, Elaine, sighed, finally looking at me. Her face was perfectly smooth, her expression one of polite, pained concern. This was her most dangerous look. "Darling, your decisions are what got you here. That is why we are stepping in. Landon is right. This Denver idea is a fantasy. You have no money. You have no real connections." She took a step closer, lowering her voice to its soft, silken, manipulative baseline, the one designed to sound like love. "If you walk away from this family," she whispered, If you refuse this anchor we are giving you, where will you end up? You will be on someone's couch by February. Or worse, you will be homeless. Is that what you want? To live in a shelter? To embarrass us like that? There it was, the word homeless. It was her favorite weapon, the one she deployed whenever I showed a flicker of independence. It was the ultimate failure, the ultimate shame. To her, it was worse than death. It was tacky. I looked at the three of them. My father, the patriarch, demanding loyalty. My mother, the martyr, wielding guilt. My brother, the golden child, demanding servitude. This was not a job offer. It was a cage. If I refused, I was the traitor. I was the ungrateful, foolish child. If I accepted, I was surrendering. I would spend the rest of my life fetching Landon's coffee, managing his calendar, and dying a slow, quiet death while he lived the life I was supposed to admire. I am not doing it, I said again, my voice quieter this time, but harder. Richard slammed the carving knife down on the table. The glasses rattled. Ungrateful. After everything we have given you, we are handing you a golden opportunity, a chance to be part of your brother's success, the real family legacy, and you throw it back in our faces? It is not an opportunity, I snapped, the control finally breaking. It is a handout. It is a leash. I do not want to be a part of his legacy. I want to build my own. Landon leaned back in his chair, a slow, ugly smirk spreading across his face. He was enjoying this. This was his show. Fine, he said, spreading his hands. Go face the real world without the family safety net. Go play coder in Denver. Let's see how long you last. Miri, a month, 2, before you come crawling back here, begging us to pay your rent. He picked up his wineglass. I give it 6 weeks. Tops. The air was too thick. I could not breathe. The smugness on his face, the disappointment on my father's, the cold pity on my mother's. It all coalesced into a single point of unbearable pressure. My hand was shaking. I reached for my water glass, to have something to do, something to hold on to. But I missed. My knuckles hit the base of my wineglass. It happened in that horrible, crystal-clear slow motion, the clink of the glass tipping, the dark, Cabernet red hitting the pristine, antique white linen tablecloth. Silence. Everyone stared at the stain. It was not a small spill. It was a flood, a dark, spreading, violent blotch. It looked like a wound, an unhideable, permanent wound. My mother let out a small, strangled sound. The linen. The spell was broken. I looked at the dark red stain, and all the fear, all the anger, just evaporated. It was done. The perfect dinner was ruined. The perfect family was stained. I pushed my chair back. The legs scraped. A loud, ugly shriek against the hardwood floor. I stood up. My voice, when it came, was perfectly calm. It was clearer and steadier than it had been in my entire life. He is right, I said. They all looked at me, confused. I might fail, I said, looking straight at Landon. I might end up on someone's couch. I might end up on the street. I turned my gaze to my mother. But I will not, and I am done. I am done letting any of you write the script for my life. I turned and walked out of the dining room. Miranda, get back here, my father roared. Miranda, you walk out that door, and you are done. You are no daughter of mine. I grabbed my purse from the entryway. I did not grab my coat. I did not even think about it. I pulled open the heavy front door. The cold hit me like a solid wall. It was December in Ohio, 10 degrees, maybe less. The wind was brutal, cutting straight through the thin blouse I was wearing for dinner. It stole my breath. A sharp, painful gasp, but it was the first real clean air I had breathed all night. I walked down the stone path, my dress shoes crunching in the light snow. You will be back, Landon shouted from the warm, bright doorway. You will be begging us. You will be nothing. I did not turn around. I got into my 10-year-old car. The one with the cracked dashboard and a heater that barely worked. The engine coughed, sputtered, and finally caught a rough protesting groan. I fumbled with the wipers, clearing the snow off the windshield. I backed out of the long, curved driveway, past their perfect illuminated wreaths. I drove. I had no destination. I had maybe $400 in my bank account. The safety net was not just gone. It had been set on fire behind me. There was no going back. There was no honorable way to return. Begging, as Landon had so gleefully pointed out, was the only path home. I drove for an hour before the car's pathetic heater finally started blowing lukewarm air onto my hands, which were bright red and numb. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. My face was pale. My eyes were wide and terrified. But for the first time in my life, I was free. I merged onto the highway, heading west. "If I am going to fail," I whispered to the empty, freezing car, the words forming a small white cloud in front of my face, "I am going to fail on my own terms." Denver, in January, is a special kind of cold. It is a thin, sharp, high-altitude cold that finds every gap in your clothing. I arrived at the bus station with 2 large suitcases, my old laptop with a spiderweb crack in the corner of the screen, and exactly $387 in my checking account. My first 3 days were a blur of no. We require a local cosigner. You do not have a credit history in this state. We need first month, last month, and a security deposit. I did not have $3,000. I had $300. I found a 24-hour co-working space in a rapidly gentrifying but not quite there yet neighborhood. It was called The Foundry, or The Hive, or one of those other interchangeable startup culture names. A hot desk, which was just a stool at a plywood counter, was $99 a month. I paid it. I had to. I needed the Wi-Fi, and I needed a place to exist during the day while I applied for the jobs I had lined up. The interviews were quick and brutal. I was a self-taught coder with a boot camp certificate, competing with computer science graduates from CU Boulder. I was not a candidate. I was a curiosity. By the end of the first week, my $387 had become $200 and change. I was eating protein bars I had stuffed in my suitcase. The choice was simple: get a motel room and be broke in 3 days, or find another way. I found another way. The co-working space had a modular sofa in the break area. It was covered in a hideous orange and brown plaid fabric that smelled faintly of stale coffee and microwave burritos. At 11 p.m., the last of the night owls would leave. At 11:01, I would go to the restroom, change into sweats, and rearrange the sofa cushions on the floor, between a vending machine and a dying ficus tree. I used my winter coat as a blanket and my second suitcase as a pillow. My alarm was set for 4:30 a.m. I would pack everything back up, go to the 24-hour gym 2 blocks away to shower, and be back at my desk with my laptop open by 5:30, looking like just another ambitious grinder. This was my life for 3 weeks. My mother's voice was a constant loop in my head. You will end up on someone's couch, or worse. I was not on a couch. I was on the floor. One night, or rather, one morning, at around 2 a.m., I was startled awake. A man was standing over me. My heart nearly exploded. He was not a threat. He was just tired. He was in his 50s, wearing a faded maintenance uniform. His name tag said, Sal. He was holding a mop. "You cannot sleep here, kid," he said. His voice was not angry. It was just exhausted. "I am sorry," I whispered, scrambling to sit up, the coat falling off me. I am waiting for a check. I fell asleep." He looked at my setup, the suitcase pillow, the laptop, tucked beside me like a teddy bear. "That is the 4th time this week you fell asleep," he grumbled. He sighed, a long rattling sound. "Look, I am going to have to report this. My boss checks the cameras." "Please," I said, my voice cracking. "I just need a few more days." He looked at my laptop. "You one of these app people?" I nodded. "I am a programmer." He grunted, leaning on his mop. "That piece of junk booking system for the conference rooms is busted. Has been for weeks. The guy who built it took a job at Google, and now nobody can reserve a room. It is a disaster. The members are screaming. I was already getting to my knees. Let me see it. What? Let me see the system. The back end. I can fix it. Sal looked at me, at the cushions, and back at my face. He saw something. I do not know what. Desperation? Competence? Maybe both. Fine, he said. You have until 6 a.m. If it is fixed, I did not see you. If it is not, you are out. It was a mess. A total hack job. Written in a version of Python so old it should have been in a museum. Trying to sync with a cheap, garbage-tier cloud database. The previous programmer had hard-coded everything. It was not a system. It was a digital house of cards. I did not try to fix it. I tore it down. I sat on that cold floor, my fingers flying. I rebuilt the logic. I cleaned up the database queries. I threw a simple, clean bootstrap front end on it. It was not beautiful, but it was fast, and it was stable. At 5:45 a.m., I showed Sal. Try to book a room, I said. He tapped his phone. His eyes went wide. It just worked. It sent me an email, a confirmation email. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time. I will be damned. He did not kick me out. He told the owner I was a consultant he had hired to fix the system, and that I was testing the office's nighttime security protocols. In exchange for free, 24/7 access, I would be his on-call tech support. It was a deal. I still slept on the sofa, but now I had permission. Word travels in weird ways. Sal told his sister-in-law, who ran a tiny nonprofit for seniors, that he knew a genius. She called me. We have all these spreadsheets, she explained, her voice frantic. Donations in one, volunteers in another, the people we deliver meals to in a third, and none of them talk to each other. We think we lost a $20,000 grant because we could not get the reports right. I went to her office. It was worse than she said. It was chaos. I can build you a single web app, I told her, my heart pounding. This was the first time I was pitching, really pitching. One place for everything, simple, clean. How much? She asked, her face tight. I was supposed to say a high number. Landon would have, I will do it for $5,000. We have $2,000, she said immediately. Done, I said. I worked for 10 days straight, fueled by the stale coffee from the co-working space. I built it. I delivered it. I trained the 65-year-old volunteer how to use it. When the $2,000 check cleared, I stared at my bank balance for a full minute. It was the first dollar I had ever truly earned. It was enough. It was enough for a security deposit and a first month's rent on a 400-square-foot studio apartment above a 24-hour laundromat. The walls vibrated during the spin cycle. The air smelled perpetually of warm cotton and bleach. It was a palace. That nonprofit job did something else. It forced me to look at the systems that run our lives. To get the grant information, I had to navigate the city's website. It was a nightmare. It was a labyrinth of broken links, undownloadable PDFs, and forms that looked like they were designed in 1998. I started digging. Procurement systems, infrastructure management, public transit scheduling. It was all broken, all of it. Everyone in the foundry was trying to build the next billion-dollar social media app, the next disruptive app for ordering pizza. They were all focused on the consumer. They were missing the point. The real money, the real power, was in the boring stuff, the plumbing, the software that runs the city itself. I sat on the floor of my new, vibrating studio with my cracked laptop. I sketched out an idea on a legal pad, a platform, not one size fits all, a modular system, a module for public procurement, a module for emergency route management, a module for infrastructure project tracking. I called it Aurora Meridian Civicware. I needed help. This was too big for one person. I went to a local civic hacking hackathon. It was mostly college kids, and one guy in the back, who was not a kid. He was in his late 30s, and he was furious. His name was Malik Rhodes. He was a systems architect, a genuine genius, who had just been laid off from the state's Department of Transportation. "They are running on software from 20 years ago," he was ranting to anyone who would listen. "I built them a new routing protocol that would have saved them $10 million a year in snowplow fuel. $10 million. And they tabled it. Bureaucracy. Not in the budget. I am done." I waited until he was done ranting. I bought him a beer. "I cannot pay you a salary," I said, before he even took a sip. "I live above a laundromat, but I have an idea, and I think you are the only other person in this city who will understand it." I sketched it on a cocktail napkin, the modules, the plan. I offered him 50% of a company that did not exist. No salary, just equity. He looked at the napkin for a long time. Then he looked at me. "You are completely insane," he said. "Is that a no?" "No," he said, finishing his beer. "That is an I am in. When do we start?" We built our MVP, minimum viable product, out of my studio and the co-working space, which Sal now gave us for free. We found a small town an hour outside Denver that was still managing their road maintenance bids on paper. We built a digital bidding module for them. We did not ask permission. We just built it. We presented it to their bored, skeptical town council. We finished the presentation. The town manager, a woman who looked like she had not slept in a year, just stared at the screen. It does that?" she said. "It just works?" They signed a contract, a small one, a few $1,000s. It was real. It was a government contract. That night, Malik and I sat on the floor of my studio, eating pizza straight from the box. We were too tired to even speak. "Well," Malik said, raising a can of cheap beer, "we are not sleeping under a bridge. Yet." I laughed, but as I did, my mother's voice, homeless, sleeping on the street, echoed in my head, the curse, the shackle. But it felt different now. The words were the same, but the meaning had changed. It was not a prophecy. It was not a threat. It was fuel. I looked at the dashboard on my cracked laptop screen. We had one client. We had one tiny, flickering data point. But it was a start. It was not a survival plan anymore. It was a company. 2 years passed. Aurora Meridian Civicware was no longer just me and Malik in a vibrating studio. We were 15 people. We had an office. It was not a gleaming glass tower. It was 3,000 square feet of reclaimed industrial space in a converted warehouse district, smelling of exposed brick, old timber, and the high-grade coffee machine that was our one true luxury. The chairs did not match, and half the desks were second-hand. But it was ours. We had survived. Now, it was time to grow. We got stable by landing a medium-sized city in the foothills. We digitized their entire procurement pipeline. It was a 3-year contract, and it was the first time in my adult life I saw a bank balance with a comma that I had earned. That contract became our anchor. It gave us cash flow. It gave us legitimacy. I learned that selling to the government is not like selling to consumers. It is not about disruption. It is about risk reduction. I spent my days not coding, but in windowless city council chambers, at procurement committee meetings, and in public bidding reviews. I learned to stop talking like a developer and start talking like a city manager. I translated asynchronous microservices into "your snowplows get on the road 10 minutes faster," saving you $50,000 per snowstorm. I translated scalable cloud infrastructure into "you will never crash on property tax collection day again." I was not selling software. I was selling reliability. I was selling boring, and they loved it. While I played the outside game, Malik built the kingdom inside. He was a master. He led the tech team, a collection of brilliant, quiet engineers who, like him, had been burned by bureaucracy before. They built the modules, the emergency dispatch module, the real-time snowplow routing, the infrastructure maintenance schedule that prioritized repairs based on actual usage data, not just who complained the loudest. We got offers. As soon as we had one city contract, The Silicon Valley venture capitalists started sniffing around. They flew in from Sand Hill Road, smelling of expensive cologne and easy money. They promised to scale us to the moon. They promised 9-figure valuations. I took the meetings, I listened to their pitches, and I said no, every single time. "You are insane," one of them told me, genuinely baffled. "We are offering you a $100 million valuation." "You are offering me your money," I replied, my voice perfectly level. "Which means you are offering me your control. We are not building a rocket ship to burn out. We are building the railroad tracks." This was not Landon's world. This was not Summit Crest Ventures. He was playing with other people's money. I was building with our own. We grew on revenue. We took a small, controlled line of credit from a local Denver bank that actually understood what we did. We owned 100% of our company. Malik and I, we had no board to answer to. We had no investors demanding an exit. We just had clients. The turning point came in year 3. It was a Tuesday in February. A blizzard, the kind they name, rolled into the Front Range. It dumped 40 inches of snow in less than 24 hours. The city shut down, except for one of the smaller municipalities north of Denver that was beta testing our snowplow routing module. Their old system was just driver's best guess. Our system was dynamic. It ingested real-time traffic data, weather radar, and reports from 911. It rerouted plows to critical infrastructure, hospitals, fire stations, main arteries, before the snow even got bad. The result? The next morning, Denver was a parking lot. That little town? Their main roads were clear. Their schools were open by 10 a.m. The local news ran a story. How did this tiny town beat the blizzard? They interviewed the city manager. She did not talk about software. She just said, "We finally got smart about where we put our resources." My phone did not stop ringing, but it was not VCs this time. It was the Colorado Department of Transportation, the state DOT, the same people who had laid off Malik. They did not just want the snowplow module. They wanted everything. They wanted to integrate our procurement system, our infrastructure planning, and our emergency routing. The negotiations took 6 months. It was a brutal, grueling process of security audits and compliance checks. We passed. We passed every single one. The contract that landed was for 7 figures, not a one-time payment. 7 figures, annual. The first thing I did with that money was not to buy a new office or throw a party. The first thing I did was buy out our only other equity holder, Sal's sister-in-law's nonprofit. I had given her 2% of the company for that first $2,000 check. I wrote her a check for $100,000. She cried. The second thing I did was create a generous equity package, real shares, for our first 5 employees, and a strong option plan for everyone else. Malik and I still held the vast majority, but our team knew, if we won, they really won. It was not a perk, it was a promise. It built a loyalty that no amount of free snacks ever could. Our books were immaculate. I paid a top-tier Denver accounting firm to audit us twice a year. Every contract, every expense, every paycheck was logged, verified, and transparent. There were no consulting fees to offshore accounts. There were no shell companies. There was no gray area. I had seen my father and his friends play in the gray area my whole life. I knew, instinctively, that the only defense against a world that wanted me to be a fraud was to be aggressively, painfully, boringly legitimate. In year 4, I did something for myself. I bought a home. It was not a starter home in the suburbs. It was a 3,000-square-foot penthouse in one of the new, sharp-edged glass buildings downtown, overlooking the Platte River and the entire Denver skyline. I paid cash. The transaction was private. No mortgage, no loan, just a wire transfer from my personal savings. I stood on the balcony the first night, with nothing but a folding chair and a bottle of champagne. I looked at the city lights. This was the view from the worse my mother had warned me about. We kept growing. We passed federal security audits, which opened up an entirely new market, a national tech journal, One read by city managers and CTOs, not by hype beasts, did a feature on us. The headline was "The Boring Startup Quietly Modernizing America's City Halls." I could not have written it better myself. I started getting invitations to speak at government innovation conferences. I was no longer the girl on the floor of the co-working space. I was Miranda Crawford, CEO of Aurora Meridian Civicware. By year 5, my personal net worth, tied up in the company's valuation and my own investments, had quietly crossed the 8-figure mark. 10 million, then 20. It was a number so large, it felt abstract. I still drove my 4-year-old Subaru. I still bought my coffee from the place on the ground floor of our building. No one in my family knew. They had stopped calling years ago. I had no social media. My name was not in the gossip columns. The only person who had an inkling was Harper, my cousin, the journalist. She had called me once, about a year ago, on a pretext. "Hey, Miri," she had said. "Weird question. Did you happen to speak at the National Governors Association meeting last month?" "I did," I said, cautiously. "Just a panel." There was a long pause. "Huh," she said. "That is not what Landon's been telling people." I did not ask. I did not want to know. "Be careful, Harper," I said. "I am always careful," she replied, but I had never told her the details. Which brings me to 4 weeks ago. I was in my office, which was now a proper corner office with glass walls, looking over the main floor. Malik and I were arguing over a bid for the city of Austin. My assistant, not an intern but a professional with a 6-figure salary, buzzed my intercom. "A courier just dropped this for you, Ms. Crawford," she said. It was a thick, cream-colored envelope, heavy cardstock. Inside, there was no letter, just an invitation. It was from a very, very famous business magazine, the one that prints a list every year, not the 30 under 30 list, but the one for people who have actually accomplished something, the Innovators of the Year list. They wanted to feature me, a full profile, a photo shoot, my name, my face, my story. I stood there, holding the invitation. This was it. This was the moment to step out from the shadows, to plant the flag, to go public. Not just as a company, but as a person. My whole life, I had been invisible. First, because my family refused to see me. Then, by choice, to protect myself and my company. I looked at the invitation, at the embossed, famous name. Was I ready? Was I ready to tell the world who I was? Before I could even decide, my phone buzzed. It was a text, and the past came crashing in. I was in the glass-walled conference room we called the Fishbowl, staring at a screen. On it was a 40-page proposal for the state of Oregon's Emergency Management Agency. It was a $4 million bid. Malik and I were going line by line, arguing about data redundancy protocols. "They are asking for a 5 nines uptime," Malik was saying, pacing. "But their legacy systems cannot even support 3. We have to build the entire data bridge from scratch." "So we build it," I said, scrolling. "It is not a bug. It is a feature. We will just add a line item for integration services." My personal phone, sitting face down on the cool glass table, vibrated, a single, sharp buzz. It was not a work call. Those came through my desk line. This was the one number that only a handful of people had. My eyes flicked to it. A text notification was on the lock screen. From Harper Quinn. Malik stopped pacing. He knew Harper was the only family I ever mentioned. "Everything okay?" I held up a hand. "1 second." I unlocked the phone. "Harper. Miri, you need to call me." My blood went cold. "Harper never demanded," she reported. "Harper. It is about Grandpa Walter. He is back at St. Jude's. His lungs. It is not good." I stood up, pushing my chair back so fast it banged against the glass wall. Malik winced. "I have to take this," I said, my voice suddenly thin. I walked out of the fishbowl, phone pressed to my ear as I dialed. She picked up on the first ring. "Miranda? What happened?" "He went in 2 nights ago," she said, her voice low and professional. The journalist's habit of delivering facts, even bad ones. Congestive heart failure, complicated by the pneumonia. They are saying it is a matter of management now, not recovery. The doctors think he should be comfortable. That is the word they are using. Comfortable. I sank against the wall in the hallway, the bustling noise of my own company fading to a dull roar. Walter. The only one who ever saw me. He was not even my real grandfather. Just a man my grandmother had married late in life. But he was the only one who mattered. While my parents were grooming Landon to be a tiny, sociopathic king, Walter was teaching me to play chess. He was the one who bought me my first computer, a clunky, beige IBM. Your mind moves differently, kid, he used to say, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Do not let them file down the edges. They are your best part. He is aware, Harper said softly, and he is stubborn. He is refusing to stay in the hospital for Christmas. He is insisting, and you know how he gets. He is insisting on throwing this one last party. A party? The big one, the annual Christmas Eve party. He has already booked the Briarwood Ridge Country Club. He is calling it his last great show. He wants everyone there. I knew what was coming. The dread was a physical weight, pressing down on my chest. Miranda, Harper said, and her voice finally broke, just a little. He keeps asking for you. Every time I see him, it is the first thing he says. Is Miranda coming? Have you heard from Miranda? I closed my eyes. The image of him, frail, hooked up to an oxygen tank in a sterile room, but still stubborn enough to plan a party. It was too much. It was a perfect, agonizing, emotional pincer. They will be there, I whispered. Landon, my parents. They are organizing it, she said flatly. It is their party, really. He is just the excuse, the guest of honor. I cannot, Harper, you know I cannot. I know, she said. She did not argue. She just reported. I had to tell you. I have to go. The doctor is here. The line clicked. I stood there, phone in my hand, my entire 8-figure company humming around me, and in that moment, I was 27 again, standing coatless in the snow, powerless. I went back to the fishbowl. Malik looked at my face. Bad news? Family, I said, which explained everything. Just give me a minute to reset. I sat down. I looked at the $4 million proposal. I looked at the line item for data redundancy, and my work phone, the one on the table, lit up, not with a call. It was a level 1 security alert from our internal system. I stared at it. We had never had a level 1 alert, not ever. What the hell? I muttered, clicking it. The alert was from our own automated security protocol, the one Malik had built. Subject, critical, anomalous data. Egress, ASEAT temp admin 04. My blood did not just go cold, it turned to ice. I clicked the link. The report was concise. At 11:30 a.m., 47 minutes ago, a temporary administrative account, one that should not have existed, was created. At 11:31 a.m., it was used to access my personal company email account, not my inbox, but the sent items. At 11:32 a.m., it forwarded a specific subset of my data to an external, encrypted email address. At 11:33 a.m., the temporary account was deleted. It was a ghost, a perfect, clean, professional breach. My phone rang. It was Malik. He was standing 10 feet away, outside the fishbowl, looking at me through the glass, his own phone to his ear. I picked up. Tell me, I said, my voice dead calm. You are seeing it? He said, his voice a tight, high-wire rasp. Miranda, this was not a bot. This was not a script kiddie. This was inside. What did they take? I am still tracing it, he said, already walking back to his workstation. But the logs show they were searching for keywords: expense, travel, vendor, photos, and calendar. I felt the room tilt, not just my company data, my life data. Get me the destination address, I said. Now. I hung up. I looked at my personal phone. Still in my left hand. The text from Harper. The news about Walter. Then I looked at my work phone. The alert. My entire life had just converged into a single, impossible point of conflict. This was not a coincidence. The timing was too perfect. A new text message popped up on my personal phone. It was not from Harper. It was from an old contact, a guy named Ben, who worked as a legislative aide at the state capitol. I had helped his boss's campaign with some data analysis once, pro bono. He was a good source for political gossip. Ben, weirdest thing, was at a reception last night. Ran into some hedge fund clown from Ohio. Summit Crest Ventures? Heard him bragging to state rep Davies. My fingers were numb. I could barely hold the phone. Ben. He was laughing, said he was about to expose some scam civic tech CEO from Denver who was inflating her achievements. Said her own family knew she was a fraud. Thought you should know. This guy sounds like a real piece of work. Landon. He had not just been talking, he had acted. The puzzle pieces did not just fall into place, they slammed together with the force of a car crash. Landon hired a private intelligence firm. The firm breached my company to get proof of my fraud. They took my expense reports, my travel calendar, photos of me going to my own office. They were not looking for fraud. They were looking for anything they could twist into the shape of fraud. And the party? The Christmas party for my dying grandfather. It was not a party, it was a stage. It was a public execution. My execution. I looked at the two scenarios. I do not go. I stay in Denver, safe in my penthouse, surrounded by my real life. Landon stands up at that party, in front of everyone, including my grandfather. He holds up his report, based on stolen data. He tells them I am a fraud, a liar, a failure. He says I faked my success. And what is my defense? My absence, my silence. He controls the narrative. He wins. And I do not see Walter. I let him die thinking his chess queen was a coward. Or I walk straight into the ambush. I fly across the country, walk into that country club, and stand there while my brother publicly, methodically, tries to destroy me in front of my entire family. My grandfather. And who? Harper, I said, dialing her number again. She answered instantly. I am coming, I said. Miranda, you do not have to. I am coming. Send me the official invitation, now, and I need the full guest list. Not the family one, the real one. Why? Just do it, Harper, please, as a journalist. The line was quiet for a second. Okay, she said, sending it now. My email chimed, the invitation PDF loaded, and below it, a spreadsheet, the guest list. My eyes scanned past the aunts, the uncles, the cousins. I went straight to the VIPs, Landon's investors, my father's contacts. My breath caught. It was not just them. The state treasurer was on the list. The regional director of infrastructure for 3 states. The mayor of one of the largest cities in the mountain region. A man Aurora had been trying to get a meeting with for 6 months. This was not just a family party. It was a political mixer. It was a room full of the most powerful people in the state. The exact people who were, or could be, Aurora's biggest clients. Landon had not set a trap. He had set a trap, baited it with my grandfather, and accidentally built it in the middle of a gold mine. I looked at Malik, who was furiously typing, his face pale with rage. I looked at the text from Ben. I looked at the guest list. And I looked at the alert on my screen, the one with the encrypted destination email address for the stolen data. It was a long, complex string. Malik, I said, my voice sharp. He looked up. Forget tracing the address. I know who it is. I want a different kind of trace. Get me a name. I want to know what private intelligence firm in New York uses an email domain like that. I stood up, grabbing my coat. If I am going, I whispered, my mind already moving, shifting from defense to offense. I am not going empty-handed. I walked out of the office, laptop under my arm. I was not going to a funeral. I was going to war. Malik's trace was fast. The encrypted email domain was registered, through a series of privacy shields, to a boutique firm in Manhattan, Granite Point Intelligence. I was on a 6 a.m. flight the next morning, not to Cleveland, to New York. I told my team it was a critical vendor relations meeting. It was not entirely a lie. Elias Ward's office was on the 32nd floor of a pre-war building in Midtown that had seen better days. The elevator was slow, groaning in protest, and the hallway smelled of old carpets and stale air. The name Granite Point Intelligence was printed in simple, block letters on a frosted glass door. I walked in at 8:01 a.m. The man who greeted me from behind a mountain of paper was Elias Ward himself. He was in his late 40s. His vest rumpled over a shirt that was probably white 3 days ago. His eyes were the color of his office's coffee. Dark, bitter, and seeing no sleep. This was not the gleaming, high-tech world of corporate espionage. This was the old-school, file cabinet and shoe leather world of finding things people wanted to keep buried. The room was lined, floor to ceiling, with bankers' boxes, each one marked with a cryptic case number. "Ms. Crawford," he said. He did not seem surprised to see me. He gestured to the only other chair in the room, a creaking wooden antique piled with files. He did not bother to clear them. I cleared them myself, stacking them neatly on the floor. "You are a long way from Denver," he said, not as a question. "You are the one who's been looking at my travel schedule, Mr. Ward," I replied. "You should know." His eyes sharpened. He leaned back, his chair screaming in protest. "So we are skipping the pleasantries. Good. I like that." He laced his fingers over his stomach. "Landon Mercer is my client. Anything we discuss is bound by that privilege." "Landon Mercer is your client," I said, my voice as cold and flat as the view of the air shaft outside his window. "But I'm the one you committed corporate espionage against, the breach of my company's servers. That was not privilege. That was a federal crime." Elias did not flinch. He just watched me. "So here's what's not going to happen," I continued, leaning forward. "I'm not here to bribe you. I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to inform you, my company, Aurora Meridian Civicware, holds multiple state and federal contracts. We have passed, with highest honors, some of the most stringent security audits in the country. What you did, or what your subcontractor did, was not just sloppy, it was monumentally stupid." I let that hang in the air. "When your client distributes his report at his little party," I said, "a report based on illegally obtained proprietary data, my response will not be to sue for libel. I will be notifying the Department of Homeland Security, the governor's office in Colorado, and the state of Oregon that Granite Point Intelligence is an active, hostile security risk. I will ruin your firm, not out of malice, out of necessity." There was a long silence. The only sound was the hiss of the ancient steam radiator in the corner. Elias Ward stared at me. Then, he did something I did not expect. He laughed. It was a short, dry bark of a laugh. "You really are your grandfather's kid," he said. "You knew Walter?" "I never met him, but I did my homework. On all of you." He leaned forward, and the tired old investigator act vanished. His eyes were suddenly, terrifyingly sharp. "Mr. Mercer paid me a very large retainer. He wanted me to verify your claims. He wanted, and I quote, irrefutable proof that she is a broke, lying fraud, so I can shut her down for good at this party." Elias grunted. "Disgusting job, but the money was good, and I am a professional, so I verified you." He reached behind him and pulled 2 thick, spiral-bound dossiers from a shelf. They were identical, with the Granite Point logo on the cover. He dropped them on the desk with a heavy, satisfying thud. "Client confidentiality is one thing," Elias said, tapping the reports. "But what your brother did was ill-advised. He hired me to find a fraud, and I did." He slid one of the folders across the desk. The label read, M. Crawford, verified. "He's not going to like this report," Elias said. "You're clean. Ms. Crawford, cleaner than clean. You are aggressively legitimate. Your company's incorporation papers, your audited financials for the last 5 years, your state and city contracts, all public record, the wire transfer for your penthouse, paid in cash, your tax returns. It is all in there. You are not a fraud. You are a goddamn fortress." I did not open the folder. I just looked at him. "And then," he continued, "I got curious. Why would this kid, Landon Mercer, pay me over $100,000 to do a simple verification? Why was he so certain you were a fake? People who live in glass houses, Ms. Crawford." He picked up the second folder. The label read, L. Mercer, Summit Crest Ventures, Irregularities. "He hired me to dig," Elias said, his voice dropping. "So I dug. I am an old-school financial crimes guy. It is what I do. And when I ran the initial check on Summit Crest Ventures, it stank. It stank to high heaven." He opened the second folder. He did not give it to me. He turned it around so I could see. It was flowcharts. "Your brother is a child," Elias said, with real professional contempt. "He thinks he is a genius because he reads about shell companies. He is not. He is an amateur, and he is sloppy." He pointed to the chart. "Money comes in here, from his investors. Good, clean money. Then, it goes out. To this LLC in Delaware, this one in the Caymans, this third one. I have not even figured out where this one is domiciled. But it is just noise. He is moving the money around to make it look complicated, but it is not." He flipped a page. It was a wire transfer receipt for $2 million from a shell company to a private bank account in Switzerland. "He is not investing the money," Elias said. "He is stealing it. He is taking investor funds, laundering them through his own stupidly named LLCs, and then wiring them directly to a personal account." He flipped another page, an email chain. "And here is the why. He is getting pressure from his CFO, a woman named, I kid you not, Brenda Callow. She is panicking. She is telling him the books are a mess, that they cannot possibly get creative for the end-of-year reports. She is warning him about the SEC, and here, this is Landon's reply, sent 3 days ago." He slid the paper across the desk. I read it. "Brenda, just smooth it. Buy us time. I have a little family drama I am spinning up for the holidays. It will be the perfect distraction. No one is going to be looking at our numbers when they are all focused on my train wreck sister. Just make it to January." I read it twice. A little family drama. "He hired me," Elias said, his voice a low growl, "to create a public spectacle to cover his own felony." He leaned back. "I'm a lot of things. I have done jobs for bad people. But I have one rule. The fraud is the fraud. I do not care who is signing the check, and I will not, cannot, be a party to it." He closed the L. Mercer folder. "So here's what I'm doing," he said. "At 4 p.m. today, a courier will deliver these reports to your brother's office, both of them, bound together. It is exactly what he paid for, the verification on Miranda Crawford, and as a courtesy, the glaring irregularities in his own fund." He pushed a second, certified set of the combined reports across the desk to me. "This one is for you. My copy stays in my safe." "And that is it?" I asked. Elias smiled. For the first time, it was not a nice smile. "Oh, no, that is not it. A preliminary report on Summit Crest Ventures, outlining significant, actionable evidence of wire fraud, was filed with the appropriate regulatory agencies about 45 minutes ago, from an anonymous, encrypted source, of course." My God, Landon had not just hired an investigator, he had hired an executioner. I stood up, my mind racing. I slid the thick, heavy report into my briefcase. It landed with a thud. "You know," Elias said, his voice conversational again, "you showing up at this party, you are a target. He is going to try and destroy you. And if he has these reports in his hand, he is cornered. And a cornered animal is stupid and dangerous. He is not the only one who is cornered, I said, snapping the locks on my briefcase. You could just not go, he suggested. Stay in Denver. Let the SEC handle it. It will be cleaner. I looked at this man, this rumpled, cynical, brutally moral stranger. Mr. Ward, my grandfather is dying. My brother is using his last Christmas party as a stage to commit character assassination and cover up a felony. I am not going to that party to make a scene. I picked up the briefcase. I am going to that party to stop him from dragging my entire family and my grandfather's name down into the sewer with him. I turned and walked to the door. Ms. Crawford, he called out. I stopped, my hand on the doorknob. Your grandfather, he said. The chess player. He would be proud. That is a solid endgame you are playing. I walked out, the frosted glass door clicking shut behind me, the weight of the evidence pulling, just slightly, on my shoulder. I flew back to Denver with the report in my briefcase. The physical weight of it was a constant reminder. It was a dense, heavy brick of facts, a 50-page anchor that could either save me or drown us all. I walked into my penthouse. The sun was setting over the mountains, and the entire skyline was bathed in that sharp, cold, alpine light. The silence of the apartment was a stark contrast to the grime of Elias Ward's office and the sterile hum of the airplane. I put the briefcase on the marble island in my kitchen. I did not open it. I did not need to. I already knew what it said. I opened my laptop, and there it was, waiting in my inbox. The counter-move I knew was coming. It was an email. The subject line was urgent, private and confidential communication. The sender was not from a Gmail account. It was from the domain of Crowley, Marsh & Denton, LLP, a Silver Spoon, White Shoe, Old Money law firm, and of course, the firm where my cousin, Daniel Crowley, had just made partner, Daniel, the family's other golden child, the one who had weaponized his logic to justify his lack of a spine. The email was not an email. It was a formal letter, attached as a PDF on gleaming, heavy-bond letterhead. It has come to our attention, it began. I could hear Daniel's smug, precise voice in every word, that you may be planning to attend the Mercer family's Christmas Eve gathering. It went on. It warned me against any and all attempts to disrupt the event. It cautioned me against making false, misleading, or defamatory statements. It mentioned tarnishing the good name of the Mercer family and causing intentional infliction of emotional distress. It was a cease and desist, wrapped in a holiday bow. And then came the real weapon. This event is, as you are well aware, intended to be a warm and supportive final gathering for your ailing grandfather, Walter Kane. His health is, as you know, extremely fragile. Any disruption, any attempt to dredge up old animosities or settle scores would be an unconscionably cruel act against a man in his final days. Such an act would be seen as, I scanned the rest, more legal threats, tortious interference, slander per se. It was a legal shotgun blast, meant to scare me, to silence me, to muzzle me. They were using Walter. They were using my dying grandfather as a human shield for Landon. The disgust I felt was a cold, hard knot in my stomach. They were not protecting Walter. They were protecting the family's financial engine. They were protecting Landon. I did not email back. I picked up my phone. I dialed Daniel's direct line. He answered on the second ring, his voice smooth as glass. Daniel Crowley. It is Miranda. There was a half-second pause. Miranda, I am glad you received my correspondence. I trust you will be sensible. What does sensible mean, Daniel? It means, he said, his voice losing all pretense of warmth, that you come, you sit in the back, you say hello to your grandfather for 5 minutes. You do not speak to any of my father's contacts. You do not speak to any of Landon's investors, and you keep your mouth shut about your ancient, childish grievances. Landon is the future of this family. Do not light a match to this because you are bitter. Did you read the report from Granite Point? I asked, my voice just as cold. I do not read tabloid trash, he snapped. Landon gave me the executive summary of your situation. We are all very disappointed, but not surprised. Do not make this worse. Miranda, it is unseemly. He hung up. My phone immediately rang again. I looked at the screen. Richard Mercer, my father. I answered. Daniel called you? His voice was not a question. It was a bark. You listen to him, and you listen to me. I do not know what games you think you are playing, but they are over. You show 1 ounce of disrespect at that party. You bring any of your old, ungrateful bitterness into that room, and you are done. We are serious. What games do you think I'm playing, Dad? He scoffed, a short, ugly sound. Your company, this fantasy you have built. I am not going to let you and your little software company endanger what Landon is building. You understand me? Landon's fund, that is the engine. That is the real Mercer legacy. That is the future for all of us. I am not letting your website building hobby get in the way of something real. My little software company. 6 years. He had not called me once. He had not asked a single question. Not, how are you? Not, what are you building? Not, are you safe? They were not trying to silence a person. They were trying to silence an inconvenience. I understand, I said. My voice was hollow. I will see you at the party. I hung up. The next morning, I did not go to my office. I went to my war room. First, I went to my lawyer's office. Not Daniel, my lawyer, Mariah Slate. Her office was in a new building downtown, all glass and steel, with a view of the mountains. Mariah was not old money. She was just brilliant. She was the best corporate litigator in Denver, and she hated bullies. I slid the certified copy of Elias Ward's report across her polished desk. I told her the story, the party, the threats. She read. She did not say a word. Her face was perfectly neutral, but as she read, a tiny, almost imperceptible smile played at the corner of her mouth. When she got to the flowcharts of Landon's wire fraud, she actually let out a low whistle. Well, she said, closing the report, this is definitive. Mr. Ward does not mess around. They sent me this, I said, sliding the PDF from Daniel's firm across the desk. They are threatening to sue me for slander if I disrupt the party. Mariah laughed, a real, sharp, genuine laugh. This is not a legal document, Miranda. This is a scare tactic. It is a weak, emotionally manipulative piece of garbage, and any first-year associate who filed it would be laughed out of court. She leaned forward. Let me be very clear. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation, and you have a report, commissioned by your brother, that proves every single thing you could possibly say is true. You cannot libel someone with their own bank statements. So I should distribute this? I asked, tapping the report. God, no, she said, her eyes flashing. That is what they would do. You are not going to do that. You are going to do something much, much smarter. You are going to keep this. She tapped the report. In your briefcase, you are going to walk into that party, and you are going to let them bring it up. You, Miranda, are not the accuser. You are the victim. You are a successful, legitimate CEO who is being targeted by her family. And the fraud? The fraud is already in motion, Mariah said, her voice all business. This Elias Ward, he has already filed with the regulatory agencies, the SEC, the FBI. They do not care about family parties. They care about wire fraud. The game is already over. Miranda, they just have not announced the winner. Your only job is to go there, be yourself, and let the truth speak for itself. From Mariah's office, I went to mine. I pulled Malik into the fishbowl. They are coming at me, I said. Not just me. They are coming at the company. Landon's entire plan is to stand up and call me a fraud, To say Aurora is smoke and mirrors, he has allies in that room, and he is going to try and discredit us. Malik, my brilliant, pragmatic partner, understood instantly. He will try to say the tech is vaporware. Exactly. So we have to be bulletproof. The demo, he said. The demo, I confirmed. But I am not logging onto the club's guest Wi-Fi. I am not giving them any network they can jam or hack or monitor. I want a go bag, a standalone, our snowplow routing module, the one that saved that town, running on its own local database. I want it on a completely separate, air-gapped laptop, unhackable, undeniable, something I can pull out and show to a city mayor in 2 minutes. Malik grinned, a slow, dangerous grin. A black box. I love it. I will put the team on it. It will be the most over-engineered, beautiful, standalone piece of code we have ever built. It will be ready by the time you fly. Good, I said, because this is not a family fight anymore. This is a business meeting. That night, I reopened the file Harper had sent me, the guest list. I had only glanced at it. Now, I studied it. It was not a list. It was a map, a diagram of power. Here, the state treasurer. He managed the pension funds. He was a potential investor in funds like Landon's, but he was also a potential client for Aurora's financial transparency modules. Here, the regional director of infrastructure, the man who signed off on the massive DOT contracts we had been chasing for a year. And here, the mayor of one of the largest cities in the mountain region, the man our sales team had been trying to get a meeting with for 6 months, and according to the seating chart, he was at Landon's table. It all clicked into place. This was not a trap. It was a nexus. It was the one room in the entire country where every single thread of my life, my family, my past, my business, my grandfather, the regulators, and the investors, was converging. It was the perfect chessboard. I checked my encrypted messaging app. One new message. It was from a secure number I now recognized as belonging to Elias Ward. It was short. Package delivered, 1600 hours. It was done. The report was in Landon's hands. He had it. The regulators had it. The game was in motion. All the pieces were moving. All I had to do was show up. I logged onto my airline account. I booked my flight, a red-eye, landing in Cleveland on the morning of the 24th. I booked a black car service to pick me up. I was not arriving in a beaten-up rental. I opened a new tab, my preferred tailor in Denver. I ordered the suit I had been looking at for a month, a bespoke, single-breasted suit in the darkest black wool. It was not a revenge dress. It was not flashy. It was a uniform. It was the armor of a person who no longer needed to raise her voice. That night, I stood in my living room, looking out at the glittering lights of Denver. In my study, the report lay in my briefcase. On the table in front of me was the antique marble chessboard Walter had given me when I was 16. I had been playing a game against myself, a long-running, complicated match. My whole life, my family had seen me as a pawn, a piece to be moved, a piece to be sacrificed to protect the king, or, in this case, the prince. First, to be Landon's assistant. Then, to be the failure that made him look successful by comparison. I looked down at the board. The pieces were in the mid-game. I reached out and picked up the black queen. The polished, cold marble felt heavy, solid in my hand. I moved her, a single, decisive, diagonal slide. She now controlled the center of the board. She was protected, and she was a threat. Check. I was never their pawn, I whispered to the empty, silent room. The black car pulled up the long, curving driveway of the Briarwood Ridge Country Club exactly at 7 p.m. I had not been here in 6 years. Not since my high school graduation party. It smelled exactly the same, an ageless, potent combination of money, old wood polish, and the sharp scent of pine needles from the enormous, perfect wreaths flanking the doors. I stepped out of the car. The cold, crisp Ohio air hitting my face. I breathed in, and it was a collision of memory, nostalgia fighting with pure, undiluted dread. I handed the valet my keys and walked in. The warmth of the lobby wrapped around me, thick with the smell of mulled wine and a crackling fireplace. A string quartet was already playing, a soft, classical rendition of a carol. Everything was perfect. Everything was designed to say comfort, tradition, wealth. I handed my black wool coat to the attendant. Underneath, I was wearing the suit, the armor. And then, the silence. It happened in waves. A distant cousin at the bar looked up, his drink halfway to his mouth. His eyes went wide. He nudged his wife. She turned. She gasped. An aunt, standing by the grand staircase, just froze. Her smile, aimed at someone else, simply collapsed. The whisper started, a low, sibilant hiss that spread through the room faster than the music. Is that... My God, it's Miranda. She came. Look at her. I kept my chin up, my gaze level, and my briefcase held lightly in my left hand. I was not here to apologize. I was not here to beg for re-entry. I was just here. A figure broke from a cluster of people by the fireplace and rushed toward me. For a second, my heart seized, thinking it was my mother. But it was Harper. She was wearing a dark green velvet dress, and her face was a mask of relief and sheer, unadulterated stress. She did not stop for a polite greeting. She just crashed into me, her arms wrapping around me in a hug so tight it almost hurt. "You are here," she whispered, her voice frantic, right into my ear. "You are actually here. I cannot believe you are here." "I am here," I said, my voice steady, though I was holding on to her just as tightly. She pulled back, her journalist eyes scanning my face, my suit, the briefcase. "Jesus, Mary, you look formidable." "You said he was asking for me." "He has not stopped," she said, her voice dropping. "He has asked, 'Is Miranda here?' At least 4 times since they sat him down. Your parents, they are on edge. Landon he is something else. He is vibrating." "Let him," I said. "Where is he?" "By the fireplace. Not yet. Go see Walter first." She squeezed my arm, a silent, "Good luck," and then she melted back into the crowd, finding a new position near the cocktail bar, a good vantage point. I started to walk. It was like parting the Red Sea. Every conversation I approached did not just quiet down, it stopped. Dead, a hard, abrupt silence. People would turn, stare at me, and then pointedly turn away, only to resume their conversation in a frantic, low-key buzz once I had passed. I was a ghost. I was a scandal. I was the walking, breathing, physical manifestation of 6 years of family gossip. I saw them, across the grand, vaulted room, in their usual orbit. My father, Richard, was holding a glass of scotch, his back to the fireplace, booming with laughter. He was surrounded by men his own age, suppliers, old money contacts. I could hear his voice even from here, carrying. And Landon's fund, Summit Crest. I am telling you, the returns are astronomical. The kid is a genius, a pure Mercer. My mother, Elaine, was a shimmering vision in navy blue silk. She was not standing still. She was moving, gliding from table to table, a perfect smile fixed on her face, adjusting a napkin here, patting a shoulder there. She was the perfect hostess, but I could see the tension in her neck. Her eyes were darting, constantly, checking the bar, checking the doors, checking for me. Her smile was a performance, and the strain was visible, just barely, in the tight line of her jaw. And then, Landon. He was near the massive 20-foot Christmas tree, holding court. He was not with the old money crowd. He was with new money, young, sharp-dressed startup founders and older, predatory-looking investors. He was wearing an expensive suit, but he was wearing it with a studied casualness, the top button undone, as if to say he was already bored of this level of wealth. He was telling a story, his hands moving, a glass of champagne held aloft. He was the star, the center of the universe. I ignored them all. I kept walking, past the chattering crowd, past the ice sculpture, toward a quiet, shielded alcove near the window. And there he was. Walter. My grandfather. He was in a wheelchair, a thick plaid blanket over his legs. He was smaller than I remembered, much smaller. The 6 years had carved hollows into his cheeks, and his skin was thin, almost translucent. A discreet oxygen tube was clipped to his nose. But his eyes were the same. When they found me, they lit up, not with surprise, but with recognition, with a sharp, sudden, undeniable spark of life. I reached him, and I did not know what else to do, so I just dropped. I knelt on the expensive, oriental rug beside his wheelchair. He reached out a frail, bony hand, covered in liver spots. I took it. It was cold. "So," he whispered, his voice a dry, reedy rasp. "The Queen has finally returned to the board." I felt the tears, the ones I had been holding back for 3 weeks, burn behind my eyes. I blinked them back. "I came as soon as I heard," I whispered back, my throat tight. He squeezed my hand. It was a weak grip, but it was his. "Of course you did," he rasped. "You never did like being told where to go, or when." He looked at me, really looked at me, a long, appraising stare. He took in the suit, the hair, the exhaustion I was not hiding from him. "You did it," he said. It was not a question. "I did." "I told you," he said, a faint, proud smile touching his lips. "I told you, all those years ago, they wanted you to be a pawn, for your brother, but you were never a pawn. You were always a queen. You had to build your own board." "I missed you, Walter," I said, the words catching in my throat. "I know," he said, his gaze drifting over my shoulder, toward the center of the room, toward Landon. His eyes hardened. They are not good at this. Miranda, they are loud, but they are not smart. Remember that." He looked back at me, his gaze intense. "I always believed in you. I always knew you would build something that was yours, something no one could take away from you, not them, not anyone." It was a private moment, a perfect, quiet bubble in the center of a hurricane. And then, of course, the bubble burst. I felt a shadow fall over us. I looked up. My mother. Elaine was standing there, her smile so tight I thought her face might crack. "Miranda," she said, her voice a brittle, high-pitched imitation of warmth. "You came? How? Lovely." She did not look at me. She was looking at my hand, holding Walter's. "Darling, you should not be kneeling on the floor," she said, her words clipped. "You are making a scene." I stood up, slowly. "Hello, Mother?" "Well," she said, not knowing what to do. She turned to Walter. "Walter, dear, are you comfortable? Can I get you anything?" "I am fine, Elaine," Walter said, his voice flat. "I am just catching up with my granddaughter." "Yes, well," she said. Her eyes flicked to me. Finally, they were cold. "The announcements are starting soon. You should find a place in the back, perhaps." And then she was gone, gliding away to greet another guest, the perfect hostess once more. I squeezed Walter's hand one last time. "I will be right back," I said. He just nodded. "Go," he rasped. "Play the game." I turned and walked back into the center of the room, but this time, I was not a ghost. I was a target, and I was also a player. I saw them. Over by the dessert table, the state treasurer and the regional director of infrastructure. They were in a deep, private conversation, holding coffee cups. They were two of the most important names on my guest list. This was it. I walked over, my heart pounding a steady professional rhythm. I waited for a pause in their conversation. "Excuse me, Mr. Treasurer?" They both turned. They looked at me, a polite, blank, political curiosity. "I am sorry to interrupt," I said. my voice calm, friendly. "My name is Miranda Crawford." I held out my hand. He took it. "A pleasure. Are you with the family?" "I am," I said, with a small, neutral smile. "But I am also the CEO of Aurora Meridian Civicware. We are a civic tech firm out of Denver." The infrastructure director's eyes lit up, just a fraction. "Aurora? Wait, are you the snowplow people?" "A seed. A tiny, perfect seed." "We are," I said. "We specialize in logistics and procurement optimization for state and local government." "Huh," the treasurer said, looking at me with new interest. "Good for you. I was not aware the Mercer family was in tech." "We are," I said. "In our own way. I hope we can connect after the holidays. I have a feeling we could help you solve some of your procurement data headaches." Before he could respond, a new figure stepped up. My cousin, Harper. She was holding 2 glasses of champagne. "Miranda," she said, her voice bright and loud, cutting into the conversation. "There you are. Uncle Richard is looking for you everywhere." She handed me a glass. "Mr. Treasurer, Director, so good to see you both." It was a perfect professional extraction. She gave me a look. "You are done here. Move." I took the champagne. "A pleasure to meet you both," I said. As I turned, Harper angled her body, her back to the politicians. She was not looking at me. She was looking over my shoulder, toward the podium. Her phone was in her left hand, down at her side, but it was not off. It was active. She was in position. My eyes followed her gaze. The podium, and on the small table behind it, a thick, tall stack of manila folders, at least 50 of them. Even from across the room, I could see the logo, the crisp, no-nonsense, block letter logo of Granite Point Intelligence. Landon's Truth. My stomach did a single, tight, cold flip. And then, just as quickly, it calmed. The string quartet was playing Silent Night. The sound of 200 people talking, laughing, and clinking glasses was a dull, constant roar. But underneath it, I could feel the hum, the tension in the air, the feeling, in a room full of predators and politicians and family, that the polite, civilized, boring part of the evening was about to end. And right on cue, the event coordinator, a woman with a clipboard and a headset, stepped up to the microphone at the podium. She tapped it. The sharp tap, 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 cut through the noise. The string quartet faded out. The conversations died, one by one. The room, for the first time all night, was almost completely silent. "Ladies and gentlemen," the coordinator said, her voice bright and artificial, "if I could have your attention, please, a warm welcome to Briarwood. And now, for a special address, please welcome Mr. Landon Mercer." Landon stepped up to the podium, beaming. He was absolutely electric with self-satisfaction. He tapped the microphone, a little flourish, and spread his arms wide, his perfect white smile catching the light from the Christmas tree. "Welcome," he boomed, his voice coating the room like warm syrup. "Welcome, everyone. It means so much to my family, to all of us, to have you here tonight, to celebrate the holidays, to celebrate legacy, and most of all, to honor the man who started it all for us, my grandfather, Walter Kane." A polite, warm wave of applause. Walter, from his alcove, gave a weak, almost imperceptible nod. Landon did not look at him. His eyes were already scanning the crowd, finding his investors, finding the politicians, finding me. He let the applause die, then leaned into the microphone, his expression becoming serious, intimate. "Family," he said, his voice dropping, "is about many things, but to me, the most important thing is truth. It is about responsibility to each other, and lately," he paused, sighing, "there has been a lack of truth. There is someone in this room, someone we all care about, who has been, let's say, living in a bit of an illusion." I could feel every eye in the room, everyone who knew the family story, shift to me. The pressure was a physical thing. I did not move. It is a fantasy, Landon continued, warming to his theme. A story they have been telling, and as the head of the new Mercer legacy, I felt it was my responsibility, my duty, to bring us all back to reality, to put everything on the table, in the spirit of transparency. He looked directly at me. His eyes were bright, hard, and devoid of any human warmth. He was a shark that had scented blood. So, he announced, I did something. I hired one of the top financial intelligence firms in the nation, Granite Point Intelligence. I had them do a full, deep dive verification of all the claims, because we deserve the facts. He turned and gestured to the back of the room. And I want to share those facts with all of you, our family, our friends, our partners. Tonight, we are all getting a copy of that report. A little Christmas truth. On cue, the waitstaff, who had been standing by, moved into the crowd. They began to place the thick, heavy manila-colored folders at each table setting. A quiet, rustling sound filled the room as 200 people began picking up the reports. Harper, who was standing near me, was handed one. She did not open it. She just turned, her face a perfect, blank, journalistic mask, and held it out to me. I took it. The cardstock was thick. The logo, Granite Point Intelligence, was embossed. I opened the cover. The room was filled with the sound of flipping paper. Landon was back at the microphone, a triumphant smirk on his face. He had his own copy open on the podium. He was preparing to read his execution order aloud. Let's look at the facts together, shall we? He said, his voice dripping with condescending pity. Let's start with this. Company. This Aurora Meridian Civic Wear. I was not listening to him. I was reading. The first page was a summary. My eyes scanned the lines. Subject: Miranda Crawford. Status: verified. Page 2. Aurora Meridian. Civic Wear. Incorporation documents. Filed 6 years ago. State of Colorado. Status: good standing. Page 3. A list of municipal and state-level contracts. The City of Boulder, the Town of Vail, the Colorado Department of Transportation. Page after page of them. Page 4. Audited financial statements. Prepared by Deloitte. My eyes found the number at the bottom of the page. The company's annual revenue. A number with 7 figures. Page 5. Personal asset verification. I saw the address of my penthouse. I saw the word, unencumbered, paid in cash. And then, a line. Estimated personal net worth, liquid and illiquid assets, 8 figures. Page 6. My breath caught. It was not a spreadsheet. It was a high-resolution color printout. It was the article, the one from the magazine, the Innovators of the Year list. There was my name, my official and very professional headshot, and a long, glowing paragraph about the quiet genius who is revolutionizing municipal logistics and modernizing America's infrastructure from the ground up. The whispers started. But they were not the whispers I had heard when I walked in. They were not, "That's the failure." They were sharp, shocked hisses. Did you see this? Department of Transportation. My God, is that the Forbes list? I saw the state treasurer, the man I had spoken to, flip to that page. He looked at it, his eyes wide. He pulled out his phone. He started typing. He was Googling me. His jaw dropped. At the podium, Landon had just started reading. It says here, he began, that the company, Aurora. He stopped. He had just hit page 2, his smooth, confident delivery. Shattered. It was not a pause. It was a full-on, high-speed stall. The company, he stammered, his eyes racing down the page. He was not reading to us anymore. He was just reading. He was trying to find the gotcha. The Oz tracks. His voice was higher. He was flipping pages, a frantic, flapping sound. The financials. Audited. He hit page 6. He saw the magazine printout. What? His voice cracked. It was a small, high-pitched sound. What is this? He looked up, his eyes wild, searching the room for an answer. He looked at my parents. Richard and Elaine Mercer were staring at their own copies, their faces. I will never forget their faces. It was not anger, it was not pride. It was a complete, catastrophic, system failure level of confusion. The entire narrative of their lives, the story they had built their family upon, Landon the genius, Miranda the failure, had just been detonated in their hands. My mother looked at me, her mouth slightly open. I did not look back. I just stood there, holding the report. Mr. Treasurer, I said, my voice quiet, but it cut through the silence in our corner. He looked up from his phone, his expression now one of intense, professional focus. Those procurement data headaches, I said. My team can solve them, for about 30% less than you are paying your current vendor, and we can have a demo on your desk by January 15th. He just nodded, his eyes saying done. Landon was sweating. He was pale, his skin slick under the warm lights. He was desperate. This was not the report. This was not what he had paid for. The real report. The dirt. It had to be in here. He started turning pages, not one by one, but in huge, panicked clumps. He was flipping to the end, to the back, where the real dirt must be. This is wrong, he said, his voice raw, into the microphone, which amplified his panic to the entire silent room. This is not the report. He found it, the last section. He found the title page. He thought he was saved. He raised his head, a final, desperate attempt at triumph. This is what I was talking about. This is the real story. He looked down to read the title aloud, and he froze. He stared at the page. The color drained from his face. It was not a gradual pale. It was a sudden, violent, sickly white. He snapped the report shut. Thwack. Thank you, he said, his voice a strangled whisper. Thank you all for coming. The bar is... But it was too late. At the front table, my cousin Daniel Crowley, the lawyer, the protector of the family legacy, had been watching his client, Landon, unravel, and when Landon snapped that folder shut, Daniel's legal instincts took over. He smelled a problem, a real billable hours problem. He snatched his own copy of the report, which a waiter was politely trying to retrieve. Just a moment, Daniel said, his voice sharp. He did not flip to the front. He went straight to the back, to the part his client had just seen that had made him look like he was about to have a heart attack. Daniel found the page. I watched his face. He was not a family member now. He was a lawyer at Crowley. Martian Denton. He read, his professional, smug mask dissolved into a pale, slack-jawed horror. He was not reading a report on me. He was reading a report on Landon. He looked up from the page, his eyes wide, finding Landon at the podium. Landon? Daniel said. His voice was not a shout. It was a perfectly clear, perfectly projected, courtroom quiet statement that cut through the entire room. Landon, he said again. What is this? Irregularities? Landon was shaking his head, babbling. It is a lie. It is a fabrication. She did this, he shrieked, pointing at me. It is a flowchart, Landon, Daniel snapped, his panic rising. He stood up, holding the report. It is a flowchart of wire transfers, from Summit Crest to an offshore shell company, back to a private account. My God. Landon, this is wire fraud. The room exploded. Not in a shout, in a single, massive, collective gasp. It is not, Landon screamed. It is a misunderstanding. It is not real. It says it has been sent to the SEC, Daniel yelled back, his voice cracking, his entire professional life flashing before his eyes. He was not just Landon's cousin, he was his attorney. It is a formal regulatory filing. This is not an allegation, you idiot. This is evidence. The room was in chaos. People were standing up. Investors were grabbing their coats. My father was on his feet, shouting, "Daniel, sit down. This is a family matter." My mother was just staring, frozen, her hand over her mouth. And in the absolute perfect cinematic peak of the chaos, the main doors of the ballroom, the heavy oak and glass doors I had walked through an hour earlier, pushed open. The noise, it did not die down. It stopped. It hit a wall of silence. Two men were standing in the doorway. They were not wearing tuxedos. They were wearing dark, conservative, government-issued suits. They were not guests. They were not here for the party. They paused, their eyes scanning the room, their faces completely terrifyingly blank. One of them looked at the other, and then his gaze moved, past the crowd, past the ice sculpture, and landed, with absolute, perfect precision, on the man at the podium. The two men in their dark, conservative suits did not move for a moment. They stood in the doorway, a silent, heavy presence that sucked all the air out of the room. They were from a world without ice sculptures and string quartets. They were from the world of regulations, consequences, and federal authority. The light from the 20-foot Christmas tree flashed, just for a second, off the small, discreet gold badges clipped to their belts. The taller man's eyes scanned the room, passed over the investors, the politicians, and my parents, and landed, with absolute, unhurried precision, on my brother, who was still frozen at the podium. The agent nodded, once, to his partner, and they began to move. They did not rush. They walked, their polished black shoes silent on the thick carpet, and the crowd simply parted for them, a silent, shrinking circle of fear. They walked with the unhurried certainty of men who had already read the end of the book. They stopped directly in front of the podium, standing between Landon and the rest of the party. "Mr. Landon Mercer?" the taller one asked. His voice was not loud, but it was absolute. It carried in the dead silence. Landon just stared. His mouth was open. He was still holding the microphone. "Mr. Mercer," the man said again, "I am Agent Harris. This is Agent Cho. We are with the Financial Regulatory Commission. We need to speak with you, immediately, about an ongoing active investigation into Summit Crest Ventures." Landon finally broke. The spell shattered. "No!" he shrieked, his voice cracking, a humiliating, adolescent sound that was amplified by the microphone he was still clutching. "No! This is a misunderstanding. This is a joke. It is a family party. It is Christmas Eve." His free hand, shaking violently, pointed across the room, not at me, at Walter. It is for him. My grandfather, he is sick. He is dying. You cannot do this. This is about family." Every eye in the room, including the agents, turned to the alcove, to the frail man in the wheelchair. Walter looked exhausted. He looked small, but his voice, when it came, was not weak. It was a dry, reedy, and utterly clear rasp that cut through his grandson's hysterics. "Do not," he said. The room held its breath. "Do not use me as a shield, Landon." He looked, as best he could, at the agents. "A family," Walter rasped, "is not a place to hide a thief. Do your job." That single sentence broke my father. "You cannot talk to him here," Richard roared, his face a dark, mottled purple. He lunged forward, not at the agents, but at them, a wall of misplaced old money authority. "I am Richard Mercer. I demand you speak to our lawyers. This is private. We will have your badges. Daniel, call our lawyers. Call the police." Daniel Crowley, my cousin, the lawyer, looked like he was going to be physically ill. He was pale, sweating, his own legal career flashing before his eyes. He grabbed my father's arm. "Dad, shut up." "What did you say to me?" Richard bellowed. "Shut up," Daniel hissed, his voice a dead, terrified whisper. "Those are not cops. That is the SEC. This is not, this is not something you handle. I read the report, the evidence, the wire transfers. It is absolute. It is too clear. It is over. My mother, Elaine, was not moving. She was frozen, a statue of navy blue silk. Her hand was still pressed against her mouth. She was not looking at her son, who was now being quietly questioned by Agent Harris. She was not looking at her husband, who had just collapsed, defeated, into a nearby chair. She was looking at me. Her gaze was a raw, agonizing, unfiltered mix of shame, horror, and a terrible, dawning, impossible understanding, the daughter she had dismissed, the failure, the homeless girl. I was the only one in the family who was not going to prison. I was the only one who was clean. Across the room, I saw Harper. Her phone was still in her hand, still pointed at the scene, but as she watched Agent Cho calmly begin to separate Landon from my father, as she watched the final, quiet dignity of the law assert itself, she slowly, deliberately, pressed the side of her phone. The small red light went off. Her face was grim. This was not a spectacle for the internet. This was an ending. This was accountability. The guests had formed a perfect, wide, respectful circle around the agents, Landon and my father. Landon was not being cuffed. He was not being dragged out. It was something quieter and far more devastating. He was being isolated. He was the star, and now he was the subject. The gravitational pull of the Mercer name had not just failed, it had reversed. I watched as the investors, the suppliers, the political contacts, one by one, they began to melt away. They found sudden, urgent reasons to be at the bar. They had to check their coats. They needed to make a call. They were all moving, casually, slowly, but undeniably, away from Richard and Elaine. They were recalculating. The Mercer legacy was no longer a rocket ship, it was an anchor. Agent Cho, the quieter one, looked up from the chaos. His eyes found me. He walked over, his path direct. "Ma'am," he said, "are you Miranda Crawford?" "I am." "CEO of Aurora Meridian Civic Wear?" "Yes." "We have a report that suggests proprietary data from your company was accessed by Mr. Mercer without your authorization, possibly to mislead investors and regulatory bodies." "That is correct," I said. "And the contracts and financials listed in the Granite Point report, they are accurate?" "They are," I said, my voice steady, "and they are all independently audited." I unlatched my briefcase. I was not reaching for the demo laptop. I was reaching for the heavy, bound report Elias had given me. "Agent Cho, I believe this belongs to you. It is a certified copy of the full report. I think you will find the section on Summit Crest Ventures illuminating." He took the report. His hand was steady. He gave me a long, assessing gaze. "Thank you, Ms. Crawford. We will be in touch." He turned and walked back to his partner. I walked away from the implosion. I left them all there. My brother, finally silent, being quietly escorted into a private study. My father, slumped in a chair, a broken man. My mother, still frozen, a statue in the center of her ruined party. I went back to the alcove. Walter was watching. He looked exhausted, but his eyes were clear. I took his hand. "I told you," he whispered, his voice a dry leaf. "I told you, kid. The endgame. It always belongs to the queen." "Miranda?" I turned. It was my father. He had pulled himself out of the chair. He looked old. The purple rage was gone. He was just a terrified man. He had, in the last 5 minutes, finally done the math. The lawsuits, the clawbacks, the social ruin, the end of the money. "Miranda," he whispered, his eyes wet, pleading. You have to fix this. He is your brother. You are so successful. This company, you can help him. You can pay it back. Make it quiet. We can settle this, in the family." I looked at him, The man who had called my life's work a little software hobby. The man who had, not 3 hours ago, been prepared to watch me be torn to shreds for his entertainment. He was not asking for help. He was asking for a cover-up. No. My voice was not angry. It was not sad. It was just finished. I cannot fix this, Dad. You can, he begged, his voice rising, desperate. You have money. This is not about money, I said, standing to my full height. This is about fraud. I cannot, and I will not, hide it. I will not be a part of this. The only thing I can do, the only thing I will do, is protect my company and my employees from being pulled down with him. He stared at me, his mouth open, the final realization. I was not his pawn. I was not his safety net. I was not even his daughter. I was just a stranger. I turned my back on him. The center of the room, the space where Landon had stood, was now an empty, charged void. I walked into it. The state treasurer and the infrastructure director were still there, by the dessert table. They were watching the agents, watching my father. They looked up as I approached. Ms. Crawford, the treasurer said, his voice all business. A very difficult night for your family. It is a night for clarity, Mr. Treasurer, I said. The infrastructure director cut in. He did not care about the drama. He cared about the work. This snowplow module, he said. You really think it can save us 10 minutes on emergency response time? And just like that, the power in the room had a new center. I was not the homeless girl. I was not the failure. I was, in that moment, the most stable, legitimate, and powerful person in the room. The string quartet had, mercifully, stopped. The party was over. We build our systems on trust, I said, my voice clear and strong in the suddenly quiet room. I looked at the treasurer, at the director, at the mayor, who had just walked over, his face full of questions. It is the only thing that matters. Without that, nothing works. Not software, not a family, and not an investment fund. It was over. The game was finished. I went back to Walter. Let's get you out of here, I whispered. I did not ask my parents. I did not wait for an attendant. I took the handles of his wheelchair myself. I pushed him out of the grand ballroom, past the shocked, whispering guests, past the wreckage of my family. I rolled him down a long, quiet, private hallway, far from the stairs, and into a small, warm library. The distant sound of Christmas carols was gone. My mother's power structure, my father's legacy, my brother's ambition. It had all collapsed, silently, behind us. The queen was still on the board. The king was gone. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I want to know where you are listening from. So please comment below so we can connect and share our thoughts. And if this story resonated with you, please subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it some extra love by hitting the hype button so more people can hear it.